Welcome to the Tier 1 Podcast, bringing you interviews with the brightest minds in the shooting industry. Get unique insights to help you shoot better, survive longer, and outperform your competition. Brought to you by Tier 1, the world's best shooting accessories.
Hey guys, thank you very much for joining us for this part 2 of our interview with Frank Galli on the Tier 1 Podcast. I've already done Frank's intro on the previous episode, so you know who he is. If you haven't heard that, do listen to it and catch up to where we are. There's a huge amount of information and quality stuff in there that you can take away and apply to your own shooting. In this episode, we talk about a whole load of stuff, but including what's the most important part of your rifle setup for accuracy and precision. In other words, where should you pour your hard-earned money to eke that little bit more accuracy out of it? The importance of dry firing. We also cover Frank's mantra, WTF, and that's literally what it is, WTF. It doesn't mean quite what you think, though, so keep listening to understand that a bit better. And then also what the King of 2 Mile competition is teaching us, things we can take away from that, and how we're going to keep pushing those range boundaries and start shooting further and more accurately. So without any further ado, let's dive straight into part 2 of our interview with Frank Galli.
So that's where I come from. I try to put context to things when people just throw out the generalizations.
Yeah, fair enough. You do get a lot of generalizer. I think you can go mad if you just follow threads, user discussions on the internet.
Because it lacks context.
Yeah, exactly.
And part of the thing is I tell this to everybody, like even with win strategy, have a plan and stick with it.
Yeah.
You know, don't try to change something like on a PRS type of deal. If you walk up, if you practice barricades, right? So you're going to do, you know you're going to shoot a match. You know you're going to shoot a barricade.
Yeah.
And then maybe somebody from the U.S. comes over to shoot one of your matches. And now you have a plan in your head. I'm going to shoot the barricade like this because this is how I practiced. Well, now you see somebody in front of you from the U.S. and they do it completely different.
Sure.
And they clean it.
Yeah.
And now you go, wow. Right. Now you go, wow, I never seen anybody do it like that. Mm-hmm. And he cleaned it. I'm going to try it. Yeah. Is that the time to try that?
Well, under pressure with absolutely.
Right.
For sure, yeah.
And these are the missing tips and tricks. I mean, Kalen, there's a little core element of us that says, and especially in the comp world now, guys want to know the tips and tricks before they know the trade.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, we've got, there's another phrase like that kind of sums up the ethos of what you're saying there, which is like all the gear, no idea. You know? Yeah. They're not working the fundamentals first.
And I'm a fan of gear, man. I see the piece people don't understand about me is I'm a fan first. And that's why I have the longevity. That's why I have the passion. That's why I have the drive, because I'm a fan. That's why my podcast has, new episodes every friggin' week.
Yeah, you love it.
Right. So I'm about the gear, but I'm not about needlessly wasting your money on gear. I'm not about buying a solution unless you know you need that tool.
What are in your mind then, in your experience, what are the critical fundamentals that people should be working on, before they're going after the next shiny object?
It's all the basics. They translate to anything. And to go back to the essential gear, I will add, especially for, on both sides of the house, a tripod has become the essential piece of gear now. If I had to if they said you can have your rifle and one thing else, even if it was one thing meant a bipod too, if they said you can only have, you got your rifle and scope, you got a box of ammo, you can pick one thing, it's a tripod.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I would pick a tripod over a bipod if I had to make that choice.
What's informing that decision for you?
I could do anything with a tripod. Okay. There's nothing I can't do. I can walk from I guess London to Scotland.
Yeah.
And if I had a firing solution every, 10 miles,
Mm.
Including if I was standing in water. If I was in a swamp up to my chest,
Yeah.
I could make a shot. I could make a shot with a tripod.
True.
So to me, it's do everything well, especially the way the rifles are now. But the fundamentals don't change, man. You need like alternate positions when you're doing something off your belly, that natural point of aim, right? You need to line up straight. And we all know we're all shooting straighter now than we were. So natural point of aim is not muscling the rifle. It's it's putting everything in a straight line to eliminate angles.
Sure.
Well, then we're gonna aim, right? So our sight picture. So that we could, depending on the optic, the power, there's a little compromise you could play in there with the parallax, with the different things that we do and opening up eye boxes. But you got to aim and the bullet is going to go where the reticle is. If we zeroed our rifle correctly, the bullet goes where the reticle, right? Yeah. So we have to align that. Well, then, people talk about the breathing side, right? So breathing is our life. We have to breathe. So you want to keep breathing, but you want it to not influence the shot because it's going to move you. So you break at the bottom, collapse on your skeletal structure. If you think about an element of a good shooting position back in the day with a sling was bone support.
Right.
Well, if I'm at the bottom of my natural respiratory pause, I've collapsed on my skeletal structure. The two big balloons in my chest are no longer in the way.
Yeah.
I'm not bouncing on them. I'm now on my rib cage.
Yeah.
More support. Okay, so I get that. Now, the two biggest problems are trigger control and follow through.
Sure.
I have to nail my trigger control and follow through because thousandths, all right? So 14 thousandths of an inch is 20 minutes at 100 yards. That's your base, right? So the front of if you take a 20-minute base, like a Badger or I don't know who's a brand of rail that you guys put.
Well, we make our own rails. Yeah, with 20 in it.
Okay. Isn't it about about 11 to 14 thousandths of an inch difference between the front and the back?
Right. Yeah. You're probably right. I'd have to ask Craig, the designer, because he knows the text better than me. But yes, I'm sure you're right.
Right. Subtract the front from the back. It's half of your bullet width.
Right.
Think about that. It's half your bullet width is 20 inches at 100 yards. So any movement, if you divide that by 20, now divide 10 thousandths of an inch by 20.
Oh my goodness.
That's 1 inch of error at 100 yards.
Yeah.
So that's why trigger control and follow through are so important.
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, in life, right? You got to follow through. If you're going to do this, you don't want to half step. So these fundamentals mimic everyday life. And they're supposed to be subconscious, right? I don't really want to think about them, but I need to execute them to the best of my ability. I need to know when I'm going to trade off an index, when one's compromised, what do I do with the rest? I just ran 200 yards. I'm breathing really heavy now.
Yeah.
What do I do to fix that? You got to know these things. And so that's why fundamentals translate from handgun to carbine to precision rifle, ELR, PRS, golf, baseball, football. I mean, you guys get American football over there now.
Right.
Watch during a kickoff.
Yeah.
And they'll kick the ball into the end zone, right? They just did a 120-yard kick.
Yeah.
And the opposing team just lets the ball go past them, doesn't try to catch it.
Okay.
Well, the defenders are all running down after him. Well, when he lets the ball go, do they stop running or do they run till they touch the end zone?
I haven't watched it. Do they run till they get to the end zone?
They run. Yes, they run till they hit the end zone.
Right.
Because you're not serious if you stop.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Saying.
You're not like, so if I don't know soccer enough to say, but
I'll give you one in rugby. So I watch a lot of rugby, and just recently, I think it was even England who got caught out because you're supposed to play to the whistle, right? So even if you know that ball is offside or it's gone into touch, which means it's gone out beyond the boundary of the field, you're supposed to keep playing and tackle the guy and defend. And they didn't. And the guy ran on and there was no whistle.
Right.
That was
exactly
it.
Yes, play through. And it's the same with shooting your precision rifle. You have to follow through.
Yeah.
You have to go and make sure that you're executing these things and that you're
Yes.
being consistent behind it. And the rest will take care. It reduces the learning curve.
Right.
By executing, right? It's not to say you can't get, our stuff is so good today. I can take a 26-pound, 6mm, lay it on a bag with an 8-ounce trigger, and I will hit a target every single time.
Right.
Because the rifle's doing all the work.
It's just so precise, yeah.
Right. But what happens if you take that same guy and now you give him a hunting rifle with a 4-pound trigger, with a crazy recoil and all these other things, and you say, now do it the same?
Yeah.
Well, they can't. Right. It's Porsche versus tractor trailer.
Sure.
I can get from point A to point B if I'm going to drive a big old Volvo tractor trailer or something over there.
Yeah.
And then I can get my little Mini Cooper or something and go zipping through traffic. I can't drive my Volvo truck the same way I'm going to drive that Mini Cooper.
No, for real. But the fundamentals carry over across the disciplines.
So that's my mindset behind this. I appreciate it. I learn it. I need to know it, but I need to know how to apply it, and I need to know the pros and cons of it, and I need to know 360 degrees of it, not just a quarter of it. I mean, you know, the old saying is knowing enough to be dangerous. There's a lot of that out there.
Yeah, for sure. You see that in everything, not just shooting sports as well. You see it in everything. A little bit of information is a dangerous thing.
my favorite example is the guys who own a product and say, well, I own it. And like, you could tell they don't know how to shoot, but they own something. And when they do that, I always post a picture of, you know, I find the first day with my Ferrari and I wrecked it.
That wasn't you actually, was it? It's another.
No.
Yeah.
But there's always a photograph on the internet, and the story is he bought a Ferrari and he wrecked it a mile from the dealer.
Yeah.
You know, he owns a Ferrari. Yeah, that guy owns a Ferrari. You know, he can go on the internet and tell everybody he owns a Ferrari, but he can't drive a Ferrari.
For sure.
You know?
For sure.
But
so, I mean, it's like, it's great because it's common sense stuff, but it's not that common. Do you know what I mean? It is, I think we all could do better to practice those fundamentals. And the crucial thing that I lifted out of that, as you said, it should be subconscious. And so many bad habits are subconscious. You know, you think you're doing everything right at the range. And I've watched you working with a guy, and in fact, I think you were working on trigger control, and you don't give him any instruction. You get him to take a few shots, and you're taking notes, and there's like straight away you can see the guy's he's thinking about too many things all at once, and he's snapping the trigger instead of squeezing it, and there's, you know, all these little things that should be ingrained and are not. And in fact, it's the other way.
Yes, and I do in all my classes, I do what's called a fundamental eval. So you come to a Frank class, and you it doesn't matter who you are in my class, you're all the same the first day. Yeah. Well, I do the safety brief. You come in, I introduce, hi, how you doing? Here we are, safety brief. This is our safety, protocols. Make sure everything's good. Now go get your rifle and everything you need to shoot 5 rounds. Yeah. And I created a kind of 20 item checklist.
Okay.
And it's called a fundamental eval. And I used to do it just for me. I wrote it down and then would reference it in the class. And then I created the checklist to give to the student, sort of like a prescription. And so they can look, I do it twice. I do one in the beginning and one at the end. And the beginning one is done before I've taught you anything. And what I'm doing is I'm nitpicking the hell out of your position.
Yeah.
And so it's twofold, because I don't know why this happens. It's an American thing mostly, but it happens all the time. You get a guy who signs up for $1,000 class. He shows up and he's got his arms crossed before you even start. Yeah. And he's got an attitude, and he's like, why are you teaching me this class? And
why have you paid for it?
Yes. So there's an ego to it.
Yeah.
Well, when I put you down with no instruction and on command, I say to you, okay, shoot 5-round group. And now I'm 1 foot away from you with a pen and paper. And before you even shot, I'm scribbling furiously.
Yeah.
That gets in your head.
Oh, for sure.
And so then, that strips away the ego.
Yeah.
And it allows me to teach a class.
Yeah. It's very very humbling, isn't it, I guess?
Well, we in our PR2, we actually call it the humbler.
Right.
In that one, I do the same thing, but I do an unknown distance thing where I make you come up to a blind stage and I say there's a red target out there, find it, range, and engage it. You got 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And we call that the humbler because hardly anybody hits it. But the fundamental eval then lets you go, and now I teach the class. And the first thing I do is I go through those fundamentals, and those fundamentals take me about an hour to an hour and a half of instruction.
Right.
But you got your prescription, your checklist, and so I can go and say, Harry, you tapped the trigger, you didn't follow through. And you were holding your breath like this because I've just seen it.
Yeah.
And now after that's done and we go back to the 100-yard range, now we strip everything away from you. Okay, we're going to move your scope if you need it moved. If you're canted off to the side of if you were a little green army man with your leg up and you're shooting sideways,
sure,
we fix you. So now if I bring you straight, I got to move your scope.
Yeah.
So
do you have everyone flat with the feet flat and
everything? We were making clones, man. If you look at like the pictures from Alaska, everybody looks identical on the line. It doesn't matter what you're shooting. Now we will put guys on a bench if you're older, got physical limitations. Sure. We have ways of managing a bench that are different than for other people. We don't shoot cutout benches. We shoot square benches.
Okay.
We get straight behind it. And we use it like the prone. We push ourselves forward on it. We lay our chest on it. We want both elbows on the bench. Okay. And we want you straight and square. And we've even designed a bench and we put sort of a bipod block on it. And we square them off. And for like older gentlemen, we can even have a guy standing behind that bench in that position. And they'll shoot every bit as good as everybody else. Yeah. Standing up on the bench. Just depends on their physical limitations, but I'm not opposed, to students. I'm not opposed to shooting in the condition they're used to. So if your range doesn't let you go prone and you have no plans on going prone, why would I teach you prone? If you don't want,
it's not going to be useful.
Right. So we'll let you do a bench in my classes if we have that ability, depending on where they're located. But, my range has a bench, the Alaska range has a bench, other ranges, but some don't. But some people just aren't physically meant to be prone.
No, of course, there's a lot of variation in humans, isn't there?
Yep.
And, that's why you see bipods come in different heights, lengths, as extensions. And as you say, the tripod is infinitely adaptable.
Well, that's a pet peeve of mine is the bipods, that you'll get a big guy who buys a 6-9 Harris and puts it on the lowest setting because he heard he has to get as low as possible.
Yeah.
Well, prone is as low as you can get. The only thing below prone is dead. So you adjust the bipod for your body type.
Sure.
Me's going to be different than you. So why would you artificially do something someone else told you? It's your car. When I teach a class, I teach your rifle setup, the bipod is like your car. Seats, mirrors, and steering wheel.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so if when somebody says I got to be as low as possible and they put their bipod super low, say they're 6'2", 230 pounds.
Yeah.
Why does that guy have a 6-9 bipod on the lowest setting? That's the dumbest thing on the planet.
Sure. So it's like winding your seat right forward. Yeah.
Right. So he gets in my. I have a Touareg, a Volkswagen, the diesel Touareg there.
I know it. Yeah.
If that 6 foot tall guy gets in my Touareg, his chest is going to be against the steering wheel because I'm only 5 foot nothing.
Sure.
Move the dang seat.
Yeah. Don't just struggle through.
Right. Like when you buy a new car from the dealer, he hands you the car. you got to move the seats and the mirrors.
Oh,
Then
for sure.
Then when you get home, you get all comfortable behind it. You get in the car. I don't know if you guys do, but I do. I get all comfortable. I move all my mirrors. I fine tune it. I set the little 1, 2, 3 button.
Yeah.
You know, me, the girl, the valet. I'm doing all that, and I'm adjusting all that stuff. But I take 15 minutes to set the seats in my car up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. And then normally your wife mucks it all up for you.
Well, that's my next point. If you got in your car tomorrow and last night your wife went to the store and didn't tell you, and she moved the seat and then left it, you immediately know.
Oh, absolutely. It feels wrong. You have such a muscle memory with your car seat and your driving position.
Well, if you set your rifle up correctly, you'll have that same exact muscle memory. You'll be able to do all these things because you feel it, because you put the repetitions in. And this is where you were saying, you know, repetitions. Yeah. It's the bad habits, right? You need the 9,000 repetitions to fix a bad habit.
Yeah.
It's 3,000 positive reps to build a new habit and 9,000 to fix a bad one.
Wow. Can you dry fire that? I mean, is it, because obviously you're not, okay.
You absolutely, but you can't cheat it. You can't just lift the bolt and press the trigger. You have to do all 9,000 as if every one was a real shot.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the handgun world, there are Japanese competitors who can't shoot live rounds in Japan, who come to the US and come to other countries to shoot competitions, who've only dry practiced and have won and done well.
Wow. But they are very, not to stereotype, but they have a culture of repetition until something is perfect, in their martial arts at least.
It's a martial art, and exactly that. So what they're doing in a martial art is that they're doing a martial art. It's the kata, I think, right? That's dry practice.
The form. Yeah.
Right, your form. When you're going through the 1, 2, 3, 4s, you know, the hee-ha-ya, you know, whatever the heck they call it, you know, that's dry practice.
Yeah.
Your walk, crawl, you know, your crawl, walk, run.
Yeah, yep.
And so that's kind of where I come from with that, is that all these things are repeated in other sports. We're just not looking at it in the same way because we could buy it.
Yeah, that's the thing with the gear, for sure.
Yep.
So I've got a couple of questions. Obviously, 6.5 and 6.5 Creedmoor is everywhere now. It didn't used to be, but it is. I've heard you refer to it as one of the wind cheaters.
Mm-hmm.
We have heard through it's probably good common knowledge that Special Forces units are trialing that round in the States and here and elsewhere.
Yep.
What are your personal thoughts on all of the variations of the 6.5? And secondly to that, if you could pick only one gun and one caliber, what would it be? Would it be 6.5?
Yeah. I love 6.5. And our military was doing 260 prior, and I shot a lot of 260. Okay. I wish 260 was better supported, but the 6.5 Creed is money. I like it. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan. We can go back to 2015. Is our guys were running the 6.5 variants even a little before that. So we've been doing it for longer than we've advertised it.
Yeah.
So if I only could pick the one gun, my one gun, Holy Grail gun, is an AI. I'm an AI fan. I'm good friends with Dave Walls over there and Tom and everybody and Alice, and known them forever. My one gun is an AI. There's no getting around it. Yeah. I probably, if it was the apocalypse kind of deal, I'd probably do a 308 just because of numbers. But I will say, as the world spins today, I'm going to do a 6.5. Yeah. I can go to the backwoods of Alaska. I can get 6.5 on the shelf.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Even 6 Creedmoor is on the shelves in nowhere, Alaska.
Right.
Hornady through Hornaday's the big one. They put that stuff everywhere. They're in every shelf out here. There's no Walmart gun shop that doesn't have it. So the logistics has been solved.
It's no longer an issue.
Right. There is an argument for the one gun for me, although I don't like it, but I guess if I had to go, if the world was going to explode and I thought I could get away with it, I'd rather do a 338.
Yeah.
But I'm smaller. It's not quite as practical. I'm going to be a little more sneakier. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I'm going to go down a little bit. But honestly, I think on the sniping side of the world, the 338 is still, there's a lot of value to that. I know they're playing with the Normas and the different cals, and they're changing all that, trying to get out there. And, they on paper at 1,500 meters, the 338 Norma mag was better than the Lapua mag. And this mag, it's like, okay. It's still a good caliber.
Sure.
And it's going to do a lot. But I'm a 308 fan and still in a lot of ways. I grew up with it. The 6.5 variants are better. My first 260 I made in 2001. It's a matter of fact, it's sitting right here. It's my Gap Headhunter. Was a rifle I spec from GA Precision is this 260. I like the 260. Especially if you hand load for it.
Right.
The 260's money. The problem with the 260 was guys loading them long into the lands, and they grab the land and pull the bullet out. Which is what the 6.5 corrected by making the case just that little tiny bit shorter.
Right.
Has
it got a steeper shoulder as well?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a little different. I mean, it's still a good design, the Creedmoor. The one I'm not a fan of that I know a lot of people love, it's the 6.5 by 47.
Okay.
I know people love it. It's a good, accurate cartridge, but its muzzle velocity's down, and it's just enough to be annoying. I think the 6 by 47 is the better way of going with a 47 case.
Right.
So I would leapfrog a 6.5 by 47 and go straight to a 6 by 47.
Right.
So,
but you'd still pick the 6.5.
Yeah. A Creedmoor with a 130, 143, something like that. I'm a happy camper. I mean, honestly, if I could build it, I would say I want a 6.5 Creedmoor with a 136 grain Skener, or Skener. Well, however you guys want to say it there, but I'm American. We mess things up. But anyway, I would like a 136 grain load in a 6 Creedmoor. That would be my dream, kind of off the shelf, and then with my AI rifles, and then I want a suppressor on it or a moderator.
Yeah.
Moderator.
So,
yeah.
I think suppressor sounds cool a lot. I grew up with Hollywood films, so.
Yeah, me too. I want a can on it.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Very good. 6.5 Creedmoor, 136 grain load. Brilliant. And I have a second question. We sort of covered this a little bit, but back to the fundamentals for a minute. Other than the fundamentals you covered, which are in regard to the shooter themselves, what's the next biggest factor in ensuring consistency and accuracy?
Like next to taking the person away?
Take the person away. So we've assuming good trigger control, assuming good breathing, good habits, and everything is nicely bedded in, and that part of it is fine. What's the next biggest factor to ensure consistency?
The two things I look at are barrel and scope. Your barrel is going to be your biggest factor in overall. And then, because I look at it two ways, precision and accuracy, right? So precision is the group size, and that's us in the fundamentals of marksmanship. Sure. Accuracy is hitting the target at distance and doing an X ring. I got a 600 meter target I want to get in the X. Well, you have to have your ability to interpret your data correctly to hit that X.
Sure.
That means your scope has to be correct to hit the X. So if I say I need 3.2 mils to hit that 600, and my scope's only giving me 3.0, or it's going to 3.4 or some weird number, I'm not going to hit my X.
Yeah.
So, precision comes from the fundamentals of marksmanship. Accuracy comes from your ability to interpret data. Your rifle system has a bearing on both.
Okay.
So bad ammo, good ammo, barrel, scope, all has that bearing. But to me, the two biggest factors are put your money in the barrel, put your money in the scope, and then get a good trigger. And then after that, stocks are a personal preference. Make sure it's cleared and doing, like you said, correct.
Nice.
But it doesn't matter if it's a hunting stock, a chassis. If it's quality and done correctly, that's personal preference. That's your red car, blue car, that's pickup truck. But the other stuff is going to be more important. Okay,
very good. Excellent. Well, there we are. There's money in the barrel, money in the scope. Makes a lot of sense. So moving slightly on to, more kind of more about you and your personal interests and what you've done in the industry. You're obviously a really high profile character, and Sniper's Hide is a huge website. You have a lot of influence. And you've talked about, in one of your articles, your passion for getting young shooters into the sport and how important that is. A couple of questions, I guess. What's the best way to do that, in your opinion? And do you think enough is being done about that to really build the industry for the future?
No, not enough's being done, but what is being done is usually really good. Those incidents you do hear about, the Mary Beth Olsons and the different people who become public about it. Those are great success stories. But number one is don't overgun them. Right. Less is better with kids to start them out. You don't have to give them, when I grew up, it used to be funny to give somebody the biggest gun they can not handle and watch them fall down.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Sure. It may be funny to throw your kid in the water and let him sink or swim. With the firearm, not as much. So sure. I like starting them with the 22s. I think they should be better leagues. The leagues should be more focused on kids in a way. I like the 22 stuff is fantastic. I like suppressors for kids.
Okay.
Moderator, suppress them, whatever you have to do, because the sound is our biggest issue. Okay. The noise. Even consider double earring some of the kids to start out with. I could tell you I'm deaf as a stump on half my head. So double ear them, but that helps manage recoil with people, is to keep the sound down. Then patience, right? But kids are quick. Kids will move up fast. So don't shortchange a kid's learning.
Yeah.
Just be patient with them and understand their size, the weights, and what you're putting in their hand.
Yeah.
Recognize that part of it, but don't limit a kid. Don't be like, my kid's only going to shoot 100 meter. Put them to $1,000.
Yeah.
Let them go out there and experience it. The more experience they give them, the better. Put them in alternate positions. Kids are bendy. They won't break.
Sure.
Yeah. But get them with the fun. You don't want to give them the bad habits. The sooner you can get them with the fundamentals, the better you're going to be. So you're not breaking bad habits down the road, which is why I like the 22 stuff, because it's not so recoil intensive.
Yeah.
Recoil is what creates our bad habits.
Really.
And so, that's our flinch factors. That's our brain trying to be defensive. Our brain does not like the idea of a controlled explosion 3 inches in front of our nose.
Why ever? Yeah, why not?
Right. Why wouldn't it? It's like, wait a minute. You don't like a bang is going off there. So you have to do things to kind of let the brain know it's okay.
Yeah.
And the sooner you can do that, the better off you are, because that's what creates the bad habits. But I think the 22s should be, there's people who ask me about creating series and matches and different things.
Yeah.
And lately my advice is, well, why wouldn't you do a 22 first? and create, because the average range in the U.S., I don't know about you guys, is 200 yards.
Right. Okay.
A 200-yard competition for a 22 is great. I know my Voodoo 22, my 200-yard data is the same as my 6.5 Creedmoor at 1,000.
Really?
It's identical. Wind and everything.
Really?
It's almost the same wind hold. You know what I mean? It's scalable. Like the fin accuracy guys have the 22 scalable stuff over there, but they have programs that scale the data.
Right. Okay.
And
well, that's another great way to teach the fundamentals then.
Yes.
And if you're learning them young, I mean, it's like learning any skill. If you start young enough, you got far more chance of mastering it. I think that makes a lot of sense as well about silencing the rifle. I fired 22s when I was younger because we were very lucky. My school had a 22 range, and it's hidden away somewhere, in the bushes, like a throwback to World War II, I'm sure. And we were in there banging away, but it was loud, and it was like an echoey room. And it never occurred to me, but you're absolutely right. There is like a natural flinch, and then you brace the next one, and then it's bang and it's loud, and you sort of, I guess that puts a lot of people off.
Yeah, it does. The sound is our biggest deal. So if you can mitigate the sound a little bit, you'll create a better shooter.
Yeah.
And which is why the dry fire works, because you're not influenced by recoil.
Right. You got to have a bit more patience to dry fire, though. I think a bit more maturity, right?
Well, do a 40-round dry fire. Just do 40 perfect rounds.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even they have the training aids now where you could put the sign up. I just talked to the one guy, that Jeremy Swanee, and Swanee's there in the U.S. They sell the dry fire kits that has a poster board with targets on it. Then you put the step down on the caps, the scope cap with the reducer,
right?
And you can focus your precision rifle scope at 11 feet.
Wow!
And then you can focus in on target, an image, a picture of a target, range, and you could practice.
Oh wow!
And it's it's SWANNY, Swanee's, and he sells them.
Yeah. Very good. We'll have to speak to. Actually, I think Chaz introduced us to Swanee as well.
There you go.
Cool.
There's a resource.
We'll get him on. We've covered obviously the fundamentals. We've covered. There's one little thing we haven't covered, right? Maybe we could do this in like overview, because I've seen this in your videos a lot, which is your WTF approach. So we're skipping back a little bit in the podcast because we sort of covered this in the beginning. Could you cover that for anybody who's listening who hasn't heard it before?
Yeah, my mantra for shooting a precision rifle is WTF. Okay, and this is all it takes to shoot a target at long range. Okay, the W is the wind, because like for me, even when I'm driving out to the range, we have a lot of wind out here. I'm out west in Colorado.
Yeah.
We have wind flags on our highways.
Right.
Because the wind will knock tractor trailers over.
Right.
And so you'll always read, not so much Colorado, but Montana or Wyoming, right over the border. You'll always see there'll be a windstorm comes through and 6 tractor trailers were knocked over in one gust.
Oh, wow.
And so wind is my number one, right? Wind is the great equalizer. It's all about the wind.
Yeah.
So W is number one. It's the first thing you think about. As soon as you're walking out to the range, I'm looking at the wind. So that's one. Then T is your target. What is the trajectory, the range, right? The wind. What is it? What are you going to do? Are you going to hold? You're going to dial. Then you got the target, your range. So what are you going to do to engage that? You're going to hold. You're going to dial. Okay. So the wind is 6 miles an hour. Okay, cool. And we go and we'll get into it in another podcast. But it's I know I have a 6 mile an hour gun with a 6.5 Creed. So I got a 6 mile an hour gun. A 6 mile an hour gun at 600 yards means it's 0.6 of a mil. So I'm good.
Yeah.
Done. So I got that. Then elevation, target. So the T, target. It's a 600-yard target. Okay, I need 3.2 mils to hit that target. Good. Got that. Well, then the F is the fundamentals of marksmanship.
Yeah, right.
That's the checklist you put through your head. It's basically
in that order.
And I put the wind first because the wind is the wildcat. It's something you should think about the most. If you have a ballistic computer and you trued it, if you know you're dope because you shot it before, your elevation is a given.
Yeah.
You already know what your elevation is. You just have to match the numbers up, right? 600 to 6. Okay, that's 3.2 for me, you know? Well, wind is the wildcat. What's the wind doing? It's gusting, it's changing, it's doing that. So I have to put more thought into the wind. Then in order to do that, I have a plan. Okay, my wind call is put in my brain. I got a wind call. I know my elevation of target is 3.2 mils, so I'm holding on the target with my wind call. Now it should be that subconscious, no mind. I talk Tom Cruise all the time, Last Samurai.
Yeah.
No mind. Right. No mind. The fundamentals of marksmanship. So now I'm going to get in there. I've practiced. I dry fire. I don't have to overthink them because they're ingrained.
Yeah.
So now I can just focus on putting the reticle on the target where it needs to be, watching my bullet to the target. I'm driving the rifle through recoil. I'm following that bullet through the scope to the target. In my mind's eye, I'm picturing the trajectory.
Okay.
And I'm looking for it, and I find it. So then I follow it to the target, and I either hit, and I'm good, or I missed, and I have to make a follow-up. If I missed, I want to see where I splashed on the reticle. I just want to slide the scope over to that point. Okay, I held 0.6 mil, but I hit at the 1 mil mark, or actually probably be more than that, but I hit at the 1.2 mil mark is the win. So now I just slide the 1.2 into the middle of the target and send the following round. It should be 3 to 5 seconds is your honeymoon. Right. Okay. I got 3 to 5 seconds to make that correction.
Right.
I have to be on my game to do it in 3 to 5 seconds, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's why, so I'm not cluttering my mind. I'm WTF. What's the wind? What am I going to do about it? What's the target distance or trajectory? And then fundamentals.
And that 3 to 5 seconds, that's because the wind is going to change, right? Or something else, some other factor is going to shift.
Yeah, you shot and you missed the guy, and he heard the crack, and he went, "What was that?" And now he knows.
I gotcha.
It's going to take about 3 to 5 seconds for it to register. He just got shot at.
Gotcha. Right. Yes.
So let's slide the reticle over and send a follow-up shot.
Yeah.
Or if it's that high a priority and me and you are working as a team, I could say, Harry, I got 0.6 mil on. Okay, Frank, I'm on instead of you getting a spotting scope, let's give you a rifle.
Yeah.
And then I go, all right, I'm 0.6. I fire, but I need that 1.2. Well, you see it and see it's 1.2. You slide your reticle over and just shoot. Before I've even run the bolt, that next round went down range. Now I have talking rifles and not a spotter shooter dialogue.
Right.
If it's that important, maybe I need it.
2 rifles on the target. That's interesting. That's cool.
Yep. Because there's 2 of us. Why am I taking a rifle out of my buddy's hand and giving him a spotting scope?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Well,
give him a rifle.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's got a 25 power scope. I'm not going to be spotting over 25 anyway.
Yeah. It's all about getting that target.
Yeah.
So but how I mean, ranges we're shooting further and further and further and getting more and more accurate. And obviously all the equipment is being developed and refined so that we can get more accurate at those long distances. And it's become almost like the norm to shoot at 1,000 yards, and then it will be the norm to shoot at 2,000 and so on. Are you updating your own? Are you pushing your limits like that? Are you trying to reach out further, or are you refining within that space? How are you personally developing?
We're going farther. I'm going farther. And my range, my private range that I use here in Colorado is I have targets every 100 yards to a mile.
Okay.
And I could back up to 28.
Yeah.
It's a bucket list for people to shoot a mile now.
Yeah.
So my main range, the main part of it that's in front of you, goes to 1425.
Okay.
So we work to shoot everybody to that distance.
Really?
If the range doesn't have the ability to go beyond 1,000, of course, then we work within that that space. But I shoot a mile all the time, and like at the end of my class, I do like a 1 hour open shoot where I let you shoot any target on my range. And if your gun's capable, including a 6.5 Creed, in Colorado, a 6.5 Creed will hit a mile, no problem.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, we're about 20 mils to a mile on my range. Will usually get you pretty darn close. Anywhere from 18 to 21, depending on the rifle. So we can get you guys in the ballpark. But I have ELRs to me, there's two elements of ELR. One, it's all about the bullet. The bullet really, really matters in how you push it. Yeah. Two, the scope, again, because you got to reach it. Yeah. Now the problem I see is that guys make these really ridiculous looking rifles. And then they can't get any fundamentals behind them, where your fundamentals should be more important in ELR. And like I go to King of 2 Mile.
I was gonna say
I don't shoot it. I film it because it always conflicts with my schedule, and I'm not particularly a big fan of the format. But I go to be part of that, and I see people I know and talk, and I want to be there. But if you watch the majority of people shoot, they're the shooter is so far out of whack. It's a miracle that they could do anything. I'll give you a great example. I watched a guy and I'm filming him, and he had been to every King of 2 Mile. Right. And he self-makes everything, the calibers, even his own Wildcat. Super nice. Okay. Yeah. Super nice guy. Very low budget. Kind of a one-man guy, Yeah. Well, last year, the last year I went, I didn't go last year because it conflicted with my travels. He made it to the finale. He was one of the final 10 shooters. Cool. And his fundamentals were so bad. I watched him pulling the rifle over every shot. He was canting the rifle because his bipod was loose, and he was using some things. And I wanted to tell him, but I couldn't. It wasn't my place to go up and speak to him. Yeah. And I'm watching him, and the guys are calling him like, "You need more wind. You need more wind." It's like, no, you need to take the cant out of your rifle, because as you run the bolt with a lot of these, especially if you got any kind of resistance on the bolt. Yeah. If your bipod is loose, you pull the rifle over. Yeah. Yeah. And it takes a little while for people to notice it. Yeah. And so this is what happened. So to me, I think that you have to look at the fundamental setup of how you build that rifle to create a platform that's either going to be the F-class kind of ones that you see with the really wide bipods and the really light triggers, but then the taco units on the front, the Charlie Tarek unit, so you can get your cheek weld. I mean, you see a ton of people shooting King of 2 Mile with their cheek not even touching the rifle because they can't. Yeah, because it's such and some of the rifles, like you said before, they look insane. I saw some guy had like an integrated or like monolithic silencer type setup where the silencer was like this huge long tube, like a drainage pipe, all the way back to the where the cheek should be. I mean, but it was just like an apparatus. They do. It's an engineering endeavor. Yeah. In a way, you know what I mean? It's as close to bench rest as you can get a person kind of behind the rifle, but it is doing so much more, because think about this. They're usually in a King of 2 Mile situation here. What I've noticed is they're pretty consistent to 2,500. Right. Even though they shoot farther, where does the consistency fall? Well, the consistency falls off at 2,500 meter. Right. Well, that's making everything inside 2,500 that much more capable of being hit. Of course. So if we push out to 4,000, well, then 2,500 is going to then become 28. Yeah.
Sure.
And when they push the 5, 28's going to be 32.
Yeah. Is that
But
informing, is the research they're doing there and the discoveries they're making, is that informing, ballistics research elsewhere? Are people picking up on that and learning from what
Yes.
they're doing? Right.
Yes, totally. And that's the benefit of that, which I agree with. But my problem is, from a marksmanship standpoint, it's terrible example.
Right.
And you'll get guys go, well, look at this guy. He's doing everything fundamentally wrong, but he won. It's like, yeah, but that's not a great example. That's the exception, not the rule. That's because you're launching a 400 grain bullet at 3,000 feet per second. Eventually everything's going to get hit, but it's not being hit in a way I would hold up as an example of what to do.
No, absolutely. Well, apart from anything else, you can't move around with those giant guns. It's not like you're mobile, and you can go and...
Well, sniping is crew served. I mean, if you think about it, it is a crew served endeavor, especially when you get into the bigger calibers.
True.
You're shooting a crew served weapon.
True, it's not far from artillery, really, is it?
Right. A 50 cal is a crew served weapon. A machine gun is a crew served weapon. If you're going into these bigger calibers, you're engaged in a crew served endeavor.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think we should be changing sort of the fundamental way of doing that. Like, honestly, with ELR, like the one example I gave, I would be creating a mount like Cadex has, like a 50 cal, an M2 mount.
Okay.
And then they have like the solo unit. I would be creating a mount to put my rifle in.
Right.
That was big, stupid, and heavy, probably. And then I would create an off-sighting system. If I want to shoot a rifle like ELR, I would probably create something slightly different, more of a solo mount.
Right.
In a match, if they're going to limit you, now if it's military, honestly, to me, it's a beer bet. It's always been the people I've talked to who've always done it. It's a beer bet. Hey, I bet I can hit that guy, but you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because there's no danger. If somebody's 2,000 yards away from me,
sure,
not in any danger.
No.
And honestly, I have a radio.
Yeah.
Hopefully I could use it, and I'd much rather and it's 10 times cooler to drop a bomb.
Yeah, sure. And watch that. Yeah.
Right. But there is situations where maybe somebody's being harassed. There's situations of harassing fire. And now you can put harassing fire back on that person.
Right.
So knowing them, but you're understanding and talking to a guy who did exactly that, as soon as he started harassing that gunner, a gunner was a machine gunner, like a PKM, was shooting at a village.
Yeah.
Off to the side, within view of the PKM, was a team.
Right.
Harassing fire shuts that gunner down.
Yeah.
But okay, that's cool. I didn't kill the guy or do anything like that, but I gave him harassing fire. It still works. But in that context, I get it. But if I was going to be doing something like King of 2 Mile-ish, I would be trying to build something that was more offset. So even if I'm not going to be behind the rifle and I'm going to hold the rifle, especially if they're going to let me use $1,000 rest,
right,
I would create a different system. Or have classes and say, here's a light gun class, here's a heavy gun class, here's an unlimited class where a guy can roll a car up.
Yeah. I guess they're pioneering, aren't they? Like, because they're literally reaching out to distances that are like you're fairly new. It's almost like the Wild West. That's the vibe I get from it when I look at the different.
It's a bench rest model to me. It's more of a bench rest model than a practical model.
Yeah.
But with like Eduardo, he wants the practical that comes out of it to build something for the military.
Yeah.
Well, for me, that practical is going to be built in a 1,500 meter package.
Okay.
And a 1,500 meter package will be plenty capable to 25.
Right.
In that harassing sense.
Yeah. It's not going to be pinpoint accurate.
The problem is you get guys selling to the military with what they're claiming is a 2,000 meter solution, that's not really practical. Like, if you go back to them shooting the 308s at a mile, that was a selling point. And it's like, why would I take a 308 and turn it into a bad 9mm?
Yeah, for sure.
And if I'm selling you on the idea that your 308 is going to do something to somebody at a mile, I'm the biggest liar on the planet. If I'm being serious. Now, I can goof and say, hey, man, you can do it. You might get close, and given enough time and opportunity, something might get hit, but you're going to hit it with the same, right? You're going to hit it in a place you can't predict.
Yeah.
With the same amount of force of a 9mm at 100 yards.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
If you're calling it harassing fire, okay.
Yeah, sure.
If you're telling me
it's not effective.
Right, it's not effective fire by any means. If you're trying to sell somebody that you can give them effective fire with a 308 at a mile, they're lying.
Yeah.
Okay, now if you're going to tell them and say, listen, I'll show you how to give some harassing fire, and maybe, you might
distract them, and
right, but that's I have a problem with that.
Do you think we'll reach those further distances with accuracy with different calibers? Is that where the innovation is going to come from?
Yeah, I think 2000 is capable with a first round. I'm calling it.
Yeah.
I think we can take the 3-round mantra, no more than 3 rounds at a target, first round hit, 1 shot, 1 kill. I think we'll be able to get it to 2,000 meters with it's going to be something as big as a 50 cal. You know what I mean? We're probably going to have to fine tune the system a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's doable.
Yeah. What is the record now? Do you know? I remember hearing a while ago it was like 2Ks or just under 2Ks. I think?
I've seen 23 done with the 3 shots.
Right.
David Tubbs' son-in-law did it. Beyond 2000.
Right.
I don't know where they currently stand because there's so many events that will give them a score.
Yeah.
I don't know where they are, but I do like the idea of the lay down. You got 3 shots. Wait 4 hours. You got 3 more. That's your try. That is smart. That is super smart. So
it's oh, sorry, cut you off, Frank. Go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's bullet technology, man. It's the decider in that is the bullet.
Is the bullet? Yeah, that's what I was kind of asking there. Was exactly that. Yeah, is it going to come down to developments in the bullet? Because, like you said earlier, like, a lot of technology. You have a big war, like World War II. Suddenly, loads of stuff gets developed. Because it's essential. And then you have Vietnam. Loads of stuff gets developed. And then it's like you get stuck with that stuff for a long time. And now you're seeing people like wildcatting rounds, and someone's going to come up with, this is the sense I get, someone's going to come up with a hugely efficient caliber at that range. We just don't know what it is yet, or maybe we do, but it needs a tweak or something else.
It's just a tweak. I think it's going to be between that 375 and 416. And it's going to get that casing tweak. It's probably going to be not so much, definitely with like a cutting edge or a flat line. It's going to be that, but then it's going to be a case tweak where they're going to either do David Tubb and straighten the case.
Right.
Or something like that, like a Tubb system would probably be the smart way to go because that's about as man portable as you're going to get.
Yes.
And still, because he's using, that smaller bolt face.
Right.
And so if you did like a Tubb system in a step down AI 50, you'd probably land on the right combination in some kind of 375 416 variant.
Right. Would you test that? Would you go and are you tempted to test that?
I'm a little busted right now on my shoulder, so the big guns really hurt me because I've kind of messed with my neck and shoulder. But I would totally shoot that. But it's definitely doable. I mean,
it's exciting. It's like
it really is. It's gonna land.
Yeah. So, taking it then a step back, and or the way I generally like to wrap up these chats is to get an idea of your personal ethos. And the way we do that is we ask, what are your words to live by? I can't remember if I even prepped you about this before the call. So
oh
apologies.
no, you didn't. That's a tough one. My words to live by would be WTF.
Yeah, cool.
All the way across the board, though, like from like reading thing, like I think like to me it'd be like the forget about it. If you ever watched something like Donnie Brasco, where they ask about what is forget. Forget about it. Forget about it could be everything, man. It could be a little of this, a little of that. Forget about it could be good. Forget about it could be bad. To me, WTF could be the good. WTF could be the bad. Yeah. So I'm a WTF guy. Kind of like, well, what the hell did you do that for? Why the hell are you doing? Wow, that's really cool. Like, what the frig? That is excellent.
Yeah.
Wind trajectory and the fundamentals of marksmanship.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a mantra, man. It's gone in.
Yeah,
it's gone into my head anyway.
That would be my unfiltered, like, little cadence. That's what repeats in my head. WTF.
Awesome. And finally, this goes without saying, I'm sure, but where can people find you online? If where you want them to find you, how can they find you in your website?
Sure, it's snipershide.com. And then I have the Everyday Sniper podcast. And also, I kind of didn't mention much, but I do have a book coming out on Amazon. If you put my name in or whatever there to Amazon, I have a precision rifle book with a little bit of history, kind of like this podcast. But I have this variation of the book coming out within the next 15-30 days. I think the Kindle's even in pre-order. But if you go on Amazon and put in Frank Galli, my book will come right up.
What is it called?
Precision marksmanship and long range shooting for the Marine sniper, something like that.
Brilliant.
Yeah. It's over there. I can't read it from this far.
No worries. Well, I'll put all those links in the notes, and if the book is visible on Amazon, we'll link it.
Yeah, on Amazon. I think it's practical marksmanship. Practical. Yeah, I'm a practical guy.
You've been listening to the Tier 1 Podcast. Brought to you by Tier 1, makers of the world's finest rifle accessories. Find out more at tier-1-usa.com. And tune in for more great insights on the next episode.